Welcome to the Baseball Insiders Prospect Show. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as always by Eric Cole. Happy Tuesday, noon Eastern time, ready to talk about the last week of minor league action and MLB Pipeline's new top 100 list, which dropped to start the week. So plenty to talk about in terms of major leaps there. Some players we've already had our eyes on, got more recognition in the same way they did from BA, and a few big falls, and I'm not sure we're very surprised by either of them, but we will discuss them nonetheless. Plus an injury to the Padres' top catching prospect, and the Arizona Diamondbacks finally pressed the Jordan Lawlar button. We're here to talk about it all and to answer any of your questions. Eric Cole, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Big thanks to the league for promoting one big name prospect every week or so to kind of give us something to kind of get excited and talk about each week. Also, was a kind of a big week last week. A lot of this is the time of year where we start seeing some movement within systems. Guys go in the AA, guys go in the AAA, and then you can start thinking a little bit more about promotions beyond the ones that we've already seen with guys like Kurtz, and obviously we had Lawlar this past week. The guys that are steadily moving their way along and could factor into the second half. It's just been a lot of fun. This has been a really fun minor league season so far. Some guys that I thought were going to be good have struggled a little bit, but beyond that, it's been very entertaining. And there's definitely a lot more talent in the minor league systems out there than I think people give credit for.
Yeah, internal promotions, from across levels and not just to the big leagues. I thought we might get Bubba Chandler today or before this show. We did not, especially after the Pirates signed Bo Burrows for a little AAA depth. You start connecting the dots, and then you're like, maybe that was meaningless. I don't know. But Bubba could be sooner rather than later. I am wearing the Salt River Rafters Arizona Fall League hat. That is the Arizona Fall League team of Jordan Lawlar. So relevant. Not purposeful, but let's pretend it was. If you're joining us today,
it was all planned.
It was all planned. I wear hats based specifically on where Jordan Lawlar is at any moment in time. So extremely relevant. If you are just joining us today for the first time, welcome. We are here every Tuesday talking prospects, recapping the last week in minor league baseball, and theming it around potential big trends. We get guests, we get interviews. It's a good time. We are also here on the Baseball Insiders with Robert Murray, typically every Monday at 3:30, Wednesday at 1, and then Friday again at 3:30 Eastern. He does a Q&A in our Discord on Thursdays at 3 o'clock Eastern. So if you are not in the Discord, if you have not joined, we recommend that you do. That's where you get exclusive content. If you are an all-star from Robert, you get your questions prioritized in this chat. He puts out all-star exclusive videos every week. Now, Robert is off for the week, but we will be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern with a very fun and special guest co-host. I'm announcing this now for the first time. And if you are not getting this message, watching this feed, then I feel bad for you, but you can get the information later on as well. It will be public information. Sam Phelan will be joining me. He is Fansided's White Sox expert. You also probably know him from Survivor Season 47. He was the runner-up. We're going to be talking White Sox ball, Major League ball, and many facets of the game. So excited. Bring your questions. We're going to have a good time tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Today, we talk prospects, and Eric's column went live on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com. That is fansided.com/baseball-insiders. It's the place to read Eric's work, as well as many other sites, but that one specifically when it comes to his prospect columns. Robert's latest rumors and notes go there as well. Humor, insight, and weirdness from yours truly in the best of baseball and pop culture from the Fansided MLB staff writers. We have crazy stuff out there today, including Drew Cook on the rigged NBA draft lottery and how MLB might rig its own draft lottery if they wanted to follow the NBA's lead. Plus, our own Katrina Stebbins went to Detroit for 29 hours to get a bobblehead. You can read all about that on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com as well in the coming days. Also, subscribe to The Moonshot, our weekly baseball email newsletter, where the Fansided MLB team, including Robert Murray, break down on the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, behind-the-scenes info. That's also available on that feed. So what are you waiting for? All right. What we have is our own proprietary prospect analysis, and we are here talking about MLB Pipeline's respected expert prospect analysis. They dropped their new top 100 update. No surprise, the biggest risers include familiar names who've already made a massive impact across the first 6 weeks of the minor league season, like Jesus Mate, who went up 26 spots from 49 to 23, the next great teenage hope in Milwaukee. And speaking of recently teenaged hopes, Zahir Hope went from 66 to 45. Arden Amala went from 78 to 59. And George Lombard Jr., the largest rise on the list, mirroring his Baseball America leap. 49 spots up from the 90s, 43 to 44, the largest rise on the list. He just got promoted to AA last week. No surprise there. A lot of prospect lists made a judgment based on his spring training poise and sort of moved him from the 100 to 150 category to the back end of their top 100 just to say, yeah, we see what he's doing. And then after hitting 329 at high A, getting the bump, he moves up to upper crust prospect territory rather than just tip of the cap. We're showing respect. Which leaps meant the most to you in this list?
So talking about George Lombard for a second, I think this is a situation where maybe he should have been ranked a little higher to begin with, and maybe shouldn't have gotten a bump, as big of a bump as he did. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, we haven't seen him demonstrate over a long period of time that the power is real. I think he's a surefire shortstop. I think he can hit a bit, but this added weight on his frame, I just don't know how it's going to translate over a long season in terms of like how does that impact his base running, and if it actually translates to more power. Now, there's a very good chance that he has kind of one of those Anthony Volpe type seasons where he just hits a bunch of home runs, steals a bunch of bases, and looks like a shortstop of the future, right? But I would have just probably pumped the brakes a little bit more in terms of what I think about Lombard. That said, he did get promoted to AA, which is good. The bad news is that he hasn't hit really well in AA, which is bad. So I wish I would have bumped him up because I think there's just too much potential, but I would have probably put him in the 60s somewhere, just because I would want to see him demonstrate this kind of, it's opposed to just assuming that projection happens, that I want to see a little bit more of it before I kind of get to it, because I did not have Lombard coming out of the draft as a guy who's going to hit for the power that I think a lot of these people are expecting him to have. So as a result, I would have waited a little bit, but I mean, there's no denying. I mean, look, scouts love him, executives love him, the data is really good on him. So like, I might just be the minority opinion on that, but at the same time, I probably would have pumped the brakes a little bit on him.
Interesting indeed. And I feel like that is, probably where I would go to. And I didn't have these, remarkably high expectations for Lombard before I sort of saw the Carlos Correa light package unfold in person. And so, AA has been a challenge for him so far. There was an adjustment period last year at high A too. He got a cameo at the end of the year and didn't really do much of anything of note. So it was a surprise to see him emerge so defiant and triumphant. And yeah, I almost said triumphant like that drug commercial, but I didn't to start the year. So it just is funny to watch him sort of rocket up after getting the spring training respect. Sort of just people watching those games being like, nice homer. Yeah, he could be in the back end of the top 100. And then after he gets his bump and he gets the pass and tweet, all of a sudden we're seeing this huge rise. I had my eyes on Made as well, who, I mean, I don't know what the hell the timeline is for Jesus Walks, but he is swiftly becoming a guy who is going to be in a midseason re-rank. I mean, just outside the top 10. I mean, he still has room to grow, I feel like.
If his numbers continue to track like this, or even somehow get slightly better, which is entirely possible given what we saw him do in rookie ball, I mean, yeah, he could end up being a top 10 prospect by the end of the season. That would not be crazy. Well, it's crazy to say, but it wouldn't be crazy based on what we're seeing. He, again, really good in rookie ball. Everyone was like, okay, let's see what this guy can do in full season ball. And he's been like as good or better, and just hasn't missed a beat despite being a teenager. I would not be surprised if the Brewers entertain putting him on the Jackson Chourio path, but being willing to be like, okay, we got him this far. He's struggled a little bit. Now we'll pump the brakes. But the kid can just flat out hit, and as long as your hit tool is good, and that you can figure out the rest, right? You can okay, what's the best bat path to get the most power? Okay, what position is this guy best to play? If he can hit, he will get moved up. And right now he's just hitting, and he's hard to get out. Really good approach at the plate, way beyond his years. I love the kid. I think he's going to be great. I'm with you. Just outside the top 10, if not in the top 10, joining another shortstop that was pretty good. That, as it turns out, is now the number 3 overall prospect in baseball, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, how about that? I think, and just if we've got collectors who are listening, I'm sure that we do. 2025 Bowman. If you don't have you're not doing your Brewers group buys yet, if you're not busting blasters and hobbies trying to find Mades, I'd highly recommend getting on that. And I may or may not have a package downstairs that feels relevant to that cause. So we'll see how that
sweet.
Yeah, we'll see. I know we've got the. I got an internal system in my apartment. Spoiler, not to dox myself, but somebody tells me when my package is ready. And I haven't gotten that yet, but I got the little note from MLB's shop. So we'll see what Fanatics is lying, and we'll see what we get down there. Yeah, I also want to know another shortstop who maybe not quite as notable a rise, but Alex Freeland jumped up 15 spots. And I think we might be almost at the point where we have to talk about, okay, it's sort of a, do your business or get off the pot moment for the Dodgers coming up, where it's like, at what point is Freeland just properly rated a top 50 prospect in baseball? We can't just be overlooking him like he's not there. And we have to eventually reckon with the reality. They did this with Gavin Lux, who is an even more highly rated prospect. They sort of, he was on the major league roster, but did he really make it? How long did it take him to really make an impact? He was going to before he went down with injury. He had a good year last year, got buried in their cavalcade of stars. Mookie Betts keeps bringing himself back to shortstop and gravitating back there even after the Dodgers remove him from the position. At what point do they have to reconcile with Freeland being a legitimate potential replacement for Betts and a guy who needs everyday starter reps at the big league level? Or will they just keep him below the surface and hope nobody notices? Or will they use him for their next midseason blockbuster trade bait? Because he is sort of undeniably a top 50 prospect at this point in time.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Lux, right? Because it took the Dodgers calling Lux up the first time, him having a monster season down at AAA to call him up, and they never really gave him much of a chance. And now some of that was Lux's fault. He had some defensive issues, didn't hit consistently early on, and then he's moved on, and now apparently he's the Reds' second best hitter, which is kind of a bizarre thing to me. But at the same time, I can see the Dodgers being patient, and it's kind of, I'm with you. I think it's a little bit annoying that, Mookie's kind of getting to dictate the terms on this, when in reality, the best lineup for the Dodgers might involve him going back to the outfield and bringing a guy like Freeland up. Now, Freeland is not a guy who has this crazy standout tool, right? He's like, wow, this guy's like a 70 defender or a 60 power. He just does a lot of things well. He's just always hit. He's always gotten on base. He's always been good. Not great necessarily, but good. And what does that mean? Like, okay, well, if he doesn't have a standout tool, is he just, have a baseball IQ that's high enough to beat minor league pitchers and that's not going to fly against guys with real stuff? Or is he just a guy who he's just what he is? He's just going to constantly hit 280. He's constantly going to walk 10, 12% of the time. And he's going to drive in runs and impact the ball, but maybe not hit 30 home runs. I tend to think he's the latter. I think he's just a good player. He's just good. I wish he had a standout tool so I could, kind of say, look how fast this guy is. No, he's a gamer. You put him out there. He looks like a shortstop. He doesn't look like Andrelton Simmons. He can hit for power, but he's not Carlos Correa. He just does a lot of stuff well. And I think that the Dodgers have to have an honest conversation with Mookie that says, look, we think the best lineup that we can put out there involves you going back to the outfield and us giving this guy a chance. Because if you just say, Mookie, sorry, we're just going to move you and, kind of be ham-fisted about it, you risk alienating that guy. I don't think that would happen. I think Mookie's actually a pretty straightforward. So, hey, whatever's best for the team, I'll do. That's what the move to shortstop was, that to begin with.
Yeah.
We need to move you to short because, frankly, no one else in our organization can play. Again, I like the idea of that sort of alignment, but I think that some sort of earnest conversation with Mookie has to happen first. Otherwise, you might have a Rafi Devers situation.
Yeah, and it was strange to see what I thought. Again, like you said, it felt like I'll do what's best for the team thing until he decided to bring himself back into the mix and say, I'm going back. You can't stop me now. I'm going back to shortstop. Looks like these former Red Sox just continue to be chemistry problems. No, it's definitely worth wondering about how that goes down if and when the Dodgers maybe need to make a maneuver there. Now, as for the biggest falls on the list, Brandon Sproat of the Mets, I think unsurprisingly, takes the top spot, down 28 spots to 68, followed by 22 spot drops for Chase DeLauter, who we know has been held back by injury every step of the way. And Noble Meyer, anyone who plummeted surprised you at all. It does sort of feel like standard fare in terms of who already got the boot.
Yeah, I hate to read too much into these updated rankings and kind of the numbers that they're based off of 30 games into a season. Oh, this guy's now 25% worse, right? Now, at the same time, Sproat, I think maybe people were a little bit too aggressive on him. We've talked about him on the show before. He's a good pitching prospect, but he's kind of a better than the sum of his parts type of guy. He has some above average pitches, but nothing that's super exciting. It's not an overpowering fastball. It's not a breaking ball that's super high spin. He throws a lot of strikes, but he can't throw the pitches that look like strikes that end up being out of the zone. As a result, hitters know he's going to be in the zone, and that's what's happened this year. He's getting a lot of people swinging because they know he's not going to miss the strike zone, and they don't have to respect that slider going out, diving into the dirt, that fastball running up and out of the top of the zone. They just don't have to. He's going to throw strikes, and if that's going to happen, he's going to get hit a bit, and he's got to kind of learn to get some chase to kind of capitalize on that. Other than that, I mean, again, there was kind of some standard, some guys moving up because they had slow starts, some guys, but nothing crazy. And for those who are like, mentioning some names, and one of them we're going to get to here in a little bit, that, why didn't these names make it onto the list? I think that with these sorts of updates, just like a month into the season, these are like minor tweaks. Hey, we're going to adjust some guys up and down. If there's someone that needs to make a big change, like Lombard, for example, then we'll make that kind of exaggerated change. But generally, they don't do like the big overhaul until the midseason. And a lot of times they wait even until like the draft happens and they can kind of reorient everything. So I wouldn't like worry too much about like kind of where guys are ranked right now beyond, or if a guy's on the list, for example, like why isn't this guy at 99? It's because they just didn't do all that much just yet.
Yeah, although Showtime LA asking, could Mike Sirota be top 100 by season's end? We're talking about Gavin Lux earlier. To note that the prospect the Dodgers went out and grabbed in the Lux trade, someone they targeted forever, 7 bombs, 24 RBI, 354 with an 1130 OPS, now up with high A Great Lakes. He started at Rancho Cucamonga, has not played at Great Lakes yet, but got the bump. Could he be top 100? I mean, based on it does feel like there's a little bit of reputational grace given to organizations like the Dodgers. So I don't see why not. I mean, he feels like potentially a back end top 100 guy already to me.
Yeah, he could be. And again, he's a little bit further away too. So a lot of times with these lists, there's a chance that they just kind of take their time adding him to a list. And maybe he's a midseason guy. And then he gets like if he keeps hitting like this, then he's going to be like, again, that back end top 100. I just wouldn't necessarily think he's going to jump and be like a top 50 guy right away. But at the same time, I like him. I like him a lot, but I just want to see more out of him before I kind of get too excited.
Yeah, but we thank you for your question, and I'm excited to see what he looks like with the Loons, an incredibly good minor league lineup featuring the aforementioned Zaire Hope. All right, let's get to our risers and fallers from the last week, and this features someone who has been asked about in the comments today. J.R. Ritchie, has the disrespect gone too far, Eric? I believe that it has, and in a world where pitching prospects are eternally finicky, we are at a point where Ritchie is not just dominating, but he is soaking up innings as well. He's coming off a complete game shutout, and he has gone from one unbelievable Braves affiliate in the Rome Emperors to another one in the Columbus Clingstones. Do the Braves also have the best minor league affiliates in baseball right now? They might, in terms of color scheme and just... They went from being Braves to unbelievable, just complete lack of alignment, total disparity, and hot pink. So good for them.
I'd have to think about that. There's so many good minor league brands now, as opposed to kind of like naming after teams. I was very hesitant when they kind of went away from the Braves branding, because I just like kind of like the Rome Braves. It was kind of like they were like the last bastion of teams that did that. But I mean, the Rome Emperors is great. The Clingstones, I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of the name, but the uniforms do rule. Okay, so let's go to our risers first. Before I get to J.R. Ritchie, who's been asked about multiple times, I want to start with Braden Montgomery. We've talked about him on this podcast before. This is a guy that I didn't understand why he got drafted where he drafted, because he either should have fallen like into the teens or 20s because of the ankle injury that kind of maybe people were a little bit scared of, or he should have been picked in the top 5. Instead, he goes number 11. Very weird spot for him to go, because again, you would have thought that another team in the top 10 would have actually believed in what this guy's talent is, because he was one of, if not the best hitters in college baseball his draft year, period. And again, the Red Sox decided to send him over to the White Sox in the Garrett Crochet trade, and he ends up going 10 for 21 last week, scores 5 runs, 3 homers, 10 RBI. I think he's one of the best hitting prospects in baseball. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a top 25, top 15 prospect in baseball by the end of the season. The guy's just really good. The next one is J.R. Ritchie. I tend to agree that there is a little bit of disrespect for Ritchie. However, there's a couple things. One, only 7 starts this year, and last year he had just come back from Tommy John surgery. So I'm willing to let them have some time before they kind of pull the trigger on making him a top 100 guy. If at midseason he still has like a sub-2 ERA and he's not on there, then we can have a conversation about why the Pipeline and Baseball America hate him. But at the end of the day, complete game shutout. Just got promoted to Double-A the day after that complete game shutout. His strikeout rate's a little bit down, but you kind of expect that at a new level. And coming off Tommy John surgery, the pitches don't have quite the same bite that they did before he got hurt, and he's still kind of working his way back. But it's hard to argue with a 1.3 ERA in his first 7 starts this season. The last guy who we've kind of hinted at here before is Cole Young, who, again, did not have a great start to the season. Was not great, but last week was really good. 10 for 22, 3 doubles, a triple, a homer, more walks than strikeouts, a couple stolen bases. Again, I like the approach. He's not a guy that was like striking out a lot to start the year. That's where you get concerned, where you worry about the hit tool. But he just doesn't always hit the ball hard consistently. So as a result, he'll have stretches where you'll have some BABIP problems and kind of get a little bit unlucky. But he had more to show for it last week. I think he's going to be an above-average shortstop. Really like him, and I'm glad he's got a better week last week.
Yeah, and he is someone who we've had our eye on for a while, and actually hoping to get him on the show. So maybe we'll get a chance to talk to Cole at some point about what has worked so far to start the season. What about those who have fallen a bit on hard times in recent weeks, and including another faller from the MLB Pipeline list who we didn't touch on in Tamar Johnson?
Yeah, we'll start with Christian Moore. Christian Moore was probably the hottest name at the end of the season last year when it comes to prospects. And that was because the Angels kept promoting him anytime he did anything good. And made it all the way to AAA. He probably would have been promoted to the big leagues last year in his draft year had he not gotten hurt. I always liked him. I was a little bit surprised he went as high as he did in the draft. And I didn't like necessarily how quickly he was being promoted, but at the same time, every time he would get promoted to the level, he'd have 7 games in a row where he looked like Babe Ruth. So it made me feel kind of stupid. But I'm feeling a little bit more vindicated now that Angels didn't end up calling him up. And then to start the year, hasn't had a great year. In the month of May, he's hitting 207, 303 on base percentage, and a 207 slug. It's not good. He needs more time, and that's okay. He still is a very talented guy, but it does feel like that stretch of games that he had to start his minor league career was a little bit more mirage-y, just not quite ready, just needs more time. Seems like people understand how to attack him, and he needs to make that adjustment. The other is a hitting prospect that I love, is Tamar Johnson. When he was drafted, he was considered the best pure hitter in the high school draft class, and he was going to be one of those high school hitters that ascends up the minor league pipeline really quickly. That isn't really what happened, and that's because his hit tool has downgraded quite a bit. He's 2-pull happy. He's trying to hit the ball out of the park constantly, and that's just not what he was good at. He was good at kind of spraying the balls all over the field, using his other tools to kind of make the most of it. He could hit balls out the other way. He hasn't really done that. Combine that with a swing that he has a leg kick, his hands move a lot. It means that there's a lot of moving pieces, and his swing is already geared towards something that he shouldn't be doing. It makes it hard to adjust back to what he's good at. And ultimately what that's resulted in is a sub 750 OPS in May. He's hitting 235 this month. Not great. I love the talent. I love the player, but he needs to demonstrate that he can get back to what he's good at, and that is making consistent contact. That hasn't been true basically since he's been drafted. And I think other teams and organizations know how to attack him to kind of get the best odds of getting him out, as opposed to kind of trying to pitch to him and throw into a sweet spot.
And he also does notably have the same birthday, day, and year as one of our commenters. So that's also a perk in tomorrow's column. Yeah. I see you baseball toss, by the way, talking up the White Sox prospects. Absurd showing for them on Pipeline's list. Plenty of reasons to be optimistic right now, and not just because of the Cuero and Teal future catcher showdown, which we talked about on last week's show. So if you missed that one, go back and watch or listen. Also, tune in tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern again. Sam Phelan talking Chicago White Sox baseball and prospects, and probably a little bit about Survivor too, if you ask him. We'll see what he can talk about. But we're excited for him to join us on the show, and we're going to have a big White Sox show tomorrow, so please do come on by for that one as well. A couple things to hit before we sign off, and we had a question about this earlier. Ethan Salas' injury is a tough one. That's a stress reaction in the back. He is out until July. The Padres phenom catcher maybe has already been sort of passed in the eyes of many who watch Padres phenoms by Leo DeVries. We have left Salas out of a couple of conversations about top catching prospects recently. And this does not help those evaluations. This is one that can really linger with a little bit of uncertainty. And if you're counting on him being his normal self in July or returning at all, I'm not sure how much faith I have in that right now. This is obviously a rough blow to someone who needed a big season.
Yeah, and the problem is that stress reactions, like, again, you can say he won't be back until July, but just look at just within the Padres. Fernando Tatis Jr. had a stress reaction in his league, and he missed basically half a season last year. I could see Salas being out for a long time catching with this injury because, again, stress reactions in your back when you're squatting constantly, even if you're doing it on one knee, that's hard on your back. A lot of torque in your back whenever you're swinging a baseball. And he was already struggling hitting. We all thought that he could play defensively. The question was, could he hit? And he has not hit in like 2 years now. So I don't think this is not a great development for Salas. I still love the talent. I still think that he's going to be a very good defensive catcher. But I'm wondering more and more now if he ends up kind of in that backup catcher territory until he learns how to hit. And that stinks because, again, like you want to see really talented catchers because they're so rare. And I hope that he can kind of turn things around. He's still really young. So even if it takes him like 2 or 3 years to get to the major leagues, he's still plenty young enough to like have a long and illustrious, baseball career. But this is definitely a blow to be sure.
And on the flip side, Jordan Lawlar, who we've talked about plenty recently, and a little bit of prospect fatigue starting to set in there for some after an underwhelming big league cameo, but also, I mean, really cameo. We're talking about a cup of coffee, maybe a grande at Starbucks, not a venti. Like, he did nothing. He got no opportunity. He was not an X factor in that long playoff run like we thought he might be. Back in the minors now, healthy again, just 22 years old, hitting .336 this year. That's how you get the bump to the major leagues. Now the Diamondbacks will get to add Lawlar to that already insanely talented young core. Expectations were high last time we saw him in 2023. I would say they remain high, even though, yeah, it's Jason Dominguez disease. It's too much hype. Been in the majors before. He's just 22, like Dominguez, who hit 3 home runs in a game the other day, but I haven't heard many people talking about that. Lawlar has to, I guess, do something like that to recapture the magic and the public eye. But what are you expecting as the Diamondbacks sort of hang out in that wild card race and add a big bat?
Yeah, it is weird how prospects basically get one shot to make an impression, and that's just kind of who they are as human beings.
Sorry, yeah, 4 for 31. You bored me. I'm out. Like, he's got 1,000.
And I will never talk or think about you again until you get MVP votes. It is very bizarre. And especially when you look at Lawlar's line from that cameo appearance, it's not like he struck out a bunch and he was like overmatched. It's just like, oh, his contact just didn't fall. Some ground balls didn't get through, some fly balls didn't find gaps, stuff like that. He's going to be fine. Is he going to hit 330 in the big leagues? No. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 270, 280 hitter with some power and some speed. And for a prospect who also played shortstop, that is extremely valuable. Again, it seems like if you don't have peak Carlos Correa numbers, then you're not a good shortstop. If you don't have peak, Ronald Acuna Jr. numbers, then you're not a really good outfielder. When the reality is, if you get a 3 or 4 WAR player out of one of your top prospects, then that is a win. Because what happens more often than not is that those really talented guys end up, having a flaw that gets exploited, and then we don't ever hear from them again. So again, I like Lawlar. He's been hitting great. He was on our risers last week. I'm happy that he's getting an opportunity. That Diamondbacks team is looking more and more fun by the day. I'm very curious to see if the Dodgers will be able to hold them off, because if Lawlar plays well and they also have Corbin Carroll just going absolutely wild, LA might be in trouble with that division because there's a lot of teams that can play there.
Corbin Carroll, my favorite young player in baseball. I'll say it. I'll just publicly say it.
That's a good one.
My guy had a bit of a step back last year. Happens to the best of us, and he seems to have rebounded pretty nicely this year. Hopefully we see him in Atlanta for the All-Star festivities. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I don't think Lawlar's going to get there, but he could make an All-Star level impact now that they're giving him a chance again. We will be back here on the Prospect Show next Tuesday at noon. Again, Eric's got a compliment piece running on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com, and he's got one every week. So definitely stay tuned for that if you haven't already checked it out. Again, tomorrow's show with Sam Phelan should be great. Big guest on Friday as well that I will announce before Friday's show. So join us in the Discord where you'll get a first peek at that. You can also ask Robert and I questions. He got an exclusive piece of content that came out today in the All-Star channel. He's off for the week, back next week. We are holding it down in his absence. Eric Cole, anything else you would like to plug?
No, just make sure you go to the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com. We're having a lot of fun with that feed. In addition to just my prospect column, I've done some weird things about like the Red Sox most of their lineup going fishing, and how they very clearly didn't look like that they had ever fished in their lives. Katrina's putting up some great stuff. Drew, is kind of had found something that he enjoys. We're kind of having a lot of fun with kind of off the beaten path topics to kind of just entertain and kind of take a different look at baseball coverage, in addition to looking at prospect coverage and then the coverage that Robert Murray provides. So I think it's a lot of fun. You should take a look at that feed, because every single day something at least that's going to be like, what? Make you kind of like do a double take is going to be on there. And we're having a lot of fun with it. We hope you get a chance to read it.
Agreed. It's nothing but fun. Please join us there, and please join us here. Subscribe on the YouTube channel or on the audio feed. We're on any one of your favorite podcast platforms. Always here to answer your questions, talk prospects once a week, and hopefully bring on some fun guests to help illuminate that even further. For Eric Cole, I'm Adam Weinrib. We will see you right back here next Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock Eastern time with Sam Phelan on this very same channel. So come back and join us. We'll talk White Sox ball. Get your questions ready. Until then, signing off. Enjoy.